What if true compassion means letting go, even when it breaks your heart? This is the story of a young nurse who had to make a choice between saving her own soul or drowning in someone else's suffering. And what she learned might change how you love forever. Her name was Emily. She was only 28, but already knew more about death than most people twice her age. Emily worked at a small hospice center, a place where people came not to heal, but to say goodbye, and she was their final companion. For months, she cared for Mr. Howard, a man in his 80s, bitter, angry, alone. He had no family visits, no photos in his room, only silence and rage. Most nurses avoided him. He shouted, cursed, threw things. But Emily, she stayed, not because he was kind, not because he changed, but because somewhere inside, she saw a soul that was once soft, now hardened by life's cruelty. Every morning, she greeted him with a soft smile. "Good morning, Mr. Howard." And every morning, he replied, "Get out." Still, she changed his sheets, wiped his mouth, held his hand when the tremors came. Even when he didn't say thank you, even when he looked at her with eyes full of hate. Then came the night. His breathing slowed, his hands clenched in pain. Emily rushed to his side. He looked at her, for the first time, like a lost child. He whispered, "Don't leave me." She sat with him all night, holding his hand, whispering gentle words. "You're not alone, Mr. Howard. I'm here. I'm still here." And just before sunrise, he passed, quietly, with someone who still believed in compassion, even when none was given back. The nurses wept. Some called her a saint. Others said she was foolish for wasting kindness on someone who never changed. But Emily, she knew something deeper. In her journal that night, she wrote, "Compassion is not about who deserves it. It's about who needs it. And sometimes, you give love, not to change them, but so they don't die without ever having felt it." But months later, Emily burned out. She cried in her car after every shift. She stopped smiling, stopped writing. Her light was dimming, and she didn't know why. Until one evening, her old teacher, a monk named Brother Aidan, came to visit. She told him everything: the anger, the exhaustion, the ache in her chest. He listened, then said softly, "Emily, you held the pain of others so tightly. You forgot to let go of what was never yours. To be truly compassionate, you must learn to stay soft, while knowing when to step back." He poured her tea, and added, "A flower doesn't bloom by drowning in someone else's storm. It blooms because it stands in the light, and lets the rain pass through." That night, Emily returned to her room, and cried, not from grief, but from release. She finally understood. Detachment isn't the opposite of compassion. It's how compassion survives. In Buddhism, compassion, karuna, is not about saving everyone, but about being present without losing yourself. And detachment, upekkha, does not mean coldness. It means inner clarity. When people think of detachment, they often imagine monks sitting alone in caves, or people turning away from pain. But this is a misunderstanding. True detachment is not about avoiding love. It's about loving without clinging. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "Let go of attachment to people and things, just as one lets go of leaves in autumn. For what is born will die, and clinging to impermanence leads only to sorrow." But this doesn't mean you should stop loving. In fact, the deeper your detachment, the purer your love, because when you stop trying to own someone's happiness, you start to support it. When you stop expecting people to heal on your terms, you begin to hold space with patience and grace. Let's be honest. There are people we love who won't change, people we help who may hurt us, and people we pour our souls into who walk away. And still, we're asked to love. How? The Buddha taught the path of the middle way. Not too tight, not too loose. If you cling too tightly, you suffer. If you care too little, you become numb. But if you let go of outcomes and just offer your love freely, you remain peaceful. This is where compassion meets wisdom. A mother bird feeds her chicks, but when the time comes, she lets them fly. She doesn't chase them through the sky, screaming for their return. She lets go, in love. The Buddha himself encountered this. One day, a grieving mother named Kisa Gautami came to him. Her baby had died. She begged the Buddha to bring him back. He told her to find a mustard seed from a house that had never known death. She searched everywhere, but found no such house. She returned, broken and awakened. The Buddha said, "You are not alone in your pain. Every home has wept." In that moment, she detached from her grief, not by rejecting it, but by understanding it. She saw the truth. Suffering is shared, and release is compassion for oneself. To detach without losing compassion is to say, "I see your pain, but I won't drown in it. I will stand beside you, but not fall with you." You offer your heart, but not your destruction. You hold someone's sorrow, but not as your identity. This is skillful compassion. There's a Sanskrit word, maitri, loving kindness. It includes others, but also yourself. Because when you sacrifice your inner peace to rescue someone from their own karma, you both drown. In the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha said, "Even a wise man, out of compassion, must sometimes walk away, so that his presence does not become a crutch." So if you're struggling, trying to help someone who won't change, ask yourself, are you helping? Or are you holding on? Are you loving? Or losing yourself? Because real compassion is boundless, but not boundaryless. You can offer kindness without losing clarity. You can stay open without staying wounded. You can love deeply and still walk away when love becomes harm. This is what the Dharma teaches us. That your peace matters. That your compassion must include yourself. That detachment is not the end of love, but its purification. So next time you feel torn between helping someone and losing your soul in the process, remember this: let go. Not from coldness, but from wisdom. Stay kind, but stay clear. Because when you detach with love, you become a light, not a shadow. So now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever tried to save someone so hard that you ended up losing yourself? Have you ever poured love into a person, only to be left empty? And did you ever wonder if letting go was a form of cruelty or a form of wisdom? You're not alone. There are millions of people right now carrying pain that doesn't belong to them, trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed, trying to hold others up while falling apart themselves. But here's the truth: you were never meant to carry it all. The weight of the world is not yours alone. You can love deeply and still walk away when staying would mean disappearing. You can care fiercely and still say, "I choose peace over pain." You can have compassion without sacrificing your soul. Because here's what no one tells you: letting go doesn't make you heartless. It makes you honest. It means you've learned the sacred art of surrender. And surrender isn't weakness. It's strength in its most graceful form. I want you to take a moment, right now, and ask yourself, right finger, who or what are you still clinging to? Right finger, what weight have you carried for too long in the name of being kind? Right finger, what part of your compassion has turned into self-neglect? Maybe it's a relationship where you've given your all, but nothing comes back. Maybe it's a family member who drains your spirit every time you talk. Maybe it's guilt for stepping back when others called it abandonment. Whatever it is, hold it gently in your heart. And now, release it. Let it float away, like a leaf in the wind. Not with anger, not with resentment, but with love, with peace. Because this is what detachment truly is. A deep breath, a quiet yes to yourself, a soft bow to someone else's path that is no longer yours to walk. You're not saying, "I don't care." You're saying, "I care enough to stop hurting myself." You're not closing your heart, you're protecting its light. And that light? It still shines, even when you walk away. Now, I want to ask you one last question. Down finger in the comments, tell me, what is one thing or one person you know you need to lovingly release? Just one. Not because you're giving up, but because you're waking up. Because you finally understand, detachment is not the end of love. It's the beginning of inner peace. And your story might inspire someone else to take that first step too. Share this video with someone who's quietly suffering. Someone who loves too much. Someone who's afraid to let go because they think it makes them selfish. Remind them, you don't stop being kind just because you walk away. You don't stop being compassionate just because you say, "Enough." You simply begin to love with boundaries. And that kind of love heals everyone. Folded hands, thank you for watching. Thank you for feeling. Thank you for being here. With your heart wide open, now go live your truth. With clarity, with courage, with compassion. And never forget, the one who detaches with love becomes a lighthouse, not lost in storms, but guiding others home. Be gentle with yourself. You are allowed to choose peace, even if it means letting go.